at this in Utah at a Romney event. You took down the House. People apparently got a standing ovation. We got a huge amount of warmth and support. If asked, would you agree to be on the ticket with Governor Romney? If asked.
Greta, I shouldn't be asked, and because I don't want to run for office.
I know you don't want to, but I know you don't want to. There are a lot of things that people don't want to do in life, but I'm trying to sort of gauge, like, if you got sort of cornered.
I don't think I'm going to get cornered, because I've made it as clear as I possibly can. This isn't what I am equipped to do or what I want to do. I love public service. I loved my time in government. I love policy. I'm really not a politician. I wasn't cut out that way. I never ran for student government when I was in high school, and so I'll find my ways to serve, but this isn't the right thing for me.
But if you look at I would think that one of the things Governor Romney would look at in terms of enhancing his ticket, he'd look for someone with foreign policy experience. That's got to be one consideration in this very volatile world. There's no denying you have foreign policy experience.
But there are many ways to put together an administration so that you represent all of the challenges that the President of the United States will face. And it doesn't all have to be in the presidency and in the vice presidency. I am quite certain, because I know him and I admire him and I trust his judgment, Governor Romney is going to find the right person for the number 2 place on the ticket. The most important thing is going to be that it's somebody who is ready to serve should something, God forbid, happen to the president. That's the most important characteristic of the vice president. And I know he's going to make a good choice, but I know it won't be me.
All right, well, since you're not a politician, you said there's always going back to Secretary of State or some other, and you probably say no to this, but I just want to throw out a statistic at you. According to some statistics, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton has now spent 71.9 days of her life in an airplane. You spent 93.7 days of your life in an airplane, according to these statistics, as Secretary of State. Any thought or reflection on that?
That's sad. It's my thought. Well, it's a job that requires getting out there. Even in the era of modern technology, and you can pick up the phone and you can do video conferences, there's nothing like the personal contact. And I think what this demonstrates is that the American Secretary of State has to travel widely, because the inbox for the world is really the American Secretary of State's inbox, and so I think that's really what those numbers show. You have to get out there and you have to represent the United States, and you have to try to solve problems while you're out there. I always thought that it wasn't just the number of places to which you traveled or how much you traveled, but what were you trying to do? I think you would find in those numbers, I went to the Israel and the West Bank, and probably something like 22 or 23 times.
85 countries, too.
Yeah,
I know all the,
that's right.
They keep track of
You've got all the data there.
I do.
That's right.
How do you compare and contrast the Bush doctrine with the Obama foreign policy? I mean, what is sort of the big picture difference?
Well,
and the similarities.
Yes, right. Well, look, there have been some similarities, particularly in fighting the war on terror. I think President Obama has benefited from the instruments that President Bush put in place, whether it is the ability to remotely strike targets, or whether it is really, frankly, most of the intelligence I think that they're still operating on came to them from the Bush administration. The integration of intelligence and military in a way that I think helped us to get Osama bin Laden. So many of those tools have been passed on, so it's not surprising that the fighting of the war on terror looks in some ways similar. I do think that President Bush had a very strong understanding of how exceptional the United States is, and a very strong understanding that if America doesn't lead from its perspective that the world should belong to free markets and free peoples, then either you will have chaos or somebody will lead who doesn't believe in free markets and free peoples. And so President Bush was willing, against a lot of criticism, to assert American leadership. Sometimes we made mistakes. I'd be the first to say that. But when you look around the world, when you look even at the Middle East these days, you're looking at the freedom agenda unfold. We had hoped that the freedom agenda could unfold before people had to be in the streets in places like Egypt. And I'm not certain that I see that same level. I'm pretty certain I don't see that same level of willingness to assert that the United States is indeed exceptional, that the United States isn't just the lowest common denominator of what the Security Council can deliver.
Is there a cost to that, a long-term cost?
The long-term cost, I think, is that people need, countries in the international system need signals from the United States about where we stand. And sometimes they will oppose us, but very often they will rally around those signals. If you look at a place today like Syria, I understand that it would be a very good thing if we were able to bring the entire international community around the view that Bashar al-Assad has to go and that the Syrian people deserve a better future and that he has to stop killing his people. It would be great if the UN would do that. But the Security Council rarely does really hard things. And so here, if the United States is willing to step forward and help organize the response, not to put American forces on the ground, but to say to the opposition, the future of Syria has got to be a democratic, multi-confessional Syria in which all Syrians can participate. And on that basis, we will help you, the opposition. Then people will rally around that. When the United States doesn't do that, you get the regional players all playing their own agenda, and you start to get the kind of chaos that you're seeing with Syrian fighters firing on Turkish planes, with Lebanon, problems in Lebanon, in southern Iraq. And so, yes, there is a cost when the United States does not stake out a ground.
You started your career in Russia, and so let me ask you about now our relationship with Russia vis-a-vis Syria, because I know that you're a long student of Russia.
Well, the Russians, unfortunately, are reverting, I'm afraid, to a kind of 19th century view of international politics, which is, you intimidate your neighbors, which they tried to do with Georgia. You hold on to the old assets of the Soviet Union. Syria was long one of the most important allies of Russia, and before that, the Soviet Union in the Middle East, a major arms purchaser of Russian equipment. And we're going to have to find a way ultimately to go around them. I understand that some thought in the administration that it was going to be possible to, quote, reset relations with the Russians. Well,
why do we even need to what happened that we got to the position where we had to reset them?
My view of this is that, in fact, we had very good relations with the Russians during our time in office, except when it came to issues of Ukraine or Georgia or Central Asia or Poland or the Czech Republic. In other words, what used to constitute the Russians' sphere of influence. And then they believed that we should have nothing to say in that sphere of influence. We had a different view. So now what you're seeing is that not much has changed in the relationship. Vladimir Putin, the once and future president of Russia, is pretty anti-American, I think, in his sentiments and his impulses. And so we can cooperate with Russia in a lot of areas of the world. But I'm afraid on Syria, where they hearken back to the days when that was the most important element of Russian and Soviet influence in the Middle East, I really don't see where the basis for cooperation comes.
I watch Fox News and I see a lot of people get on our air and say that President Obama is apologizing for America around the world, and that's sort of, I see as sort of the antithesis of exceptionalism, promoting exceptionalism. Is that a fair criticism of President Obama or not?
Well, there are differences here in how he's responded to various countries. I don't care really if the President of the United States says, well, we've made some mistakes in the past. That's fine. That's fair game. I think it's much more important that you have an affirmative view of what the United States can do, and that you don't try to reduce the United States to the lowest common denominator of what everybody will accept.
Is that what he's doing?
I see elements of that. I see elements of that. I think when people talk about leading from behind, which, by the way, is a kind of oxymoron, you're seeing some of that. The United States, the only thing that the world hates more than unilateral American leadership is an absence of American leadership. Because the international system is a system. It has certain rules, it has certain power relationships, and people respond to those. if the United States is not setting that agenda, then somebody else will. And that might be a country that doesn't believe in free markets and free peoples. And Greta, I know that the objection is the last 10 years we've done too much of that. It got us into wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. We've got to end. I understand all of those arguments. And certainly I understand the argument which I share, that we have a significant job of internal repair to do. We've got to stop spending money that we don't have and borrowing it. We've got to deal with our entitlements. We've got to deal with K-12 education and immigration. I understand all of that. And I understand that the American people will not lead if we're not strong at home. But we don't have the luxury of retiring to the sidelines in order to repair at home and then re-entering the international system, because it will have moved on. And it will have moved on in directions that are not good for either our interests or our values.
It's a terrible thing to try to generalize, but I'm curious whether you have any sort of thought of what a President Romney foreign policy would be. Would it be someplace between the Bush doctrine and President Obama, or do you have any sort of sense, because I know you've spent time with them, and a lot of variables, a lot of things can happen in the world, but do you have any sense of this?
Well, I think Governor Romney can speak for himself on these things, but let me just say that what I find very attractive in him when we talk about these issues and talk about foreign policy is that he has a very core grounding in what it is that makes America special. He has a very core grounding in the importance of the United States in being clear with our friends, because they need to be able to trust us, and clear with our foes because they have to fear us. And those instincts, I think, will serve him well. I'm actually one who doesn't believe in presidential campaigns. What will you do on day one? Because you won't. Because once you're in the Oval Office, it looks a little different in there. So what you want to judge is a person's instincts, their principles, their values, and most importantly, do they understand the essence of what the United States is, what it's meant to the world, what keeps us strong? Are they committed to strengthening what is our core, a country that's not, it doesn't have a narrative of aggrievement, doesn't have a narrative of entitlement, but rather believes that everybody, given a chance, can achieve greatness, and that's what has made us really popular around the world, not a particular policy. People admire and react to our great narrative. You can come from humble circumstances and you can do great things.
Madam Secretary, always nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.